You're crushing a task. Everything flows, then bam, someone's watching. Suddenly, your hands feel like clumsy paws, your voice falters, and that perfect rhythm dissolves. Why does the simple act of being observed turn competence into utter chaos, making you feel like a total amateur precisely when it matters most? Our journey into why we sometimes crumble under pressure begins with understanding social inhibition, the psychological phenomenon where an individual's performance notably decreases when others are present. It's vital to differentiate this from social facilitation, which describes how an audience can surprisingly improve performance on tasks that are simple, routine, or incredibly well practiced. Social inhibition is its counterpart, specifically targeting complex, novel, or unfamiliar tasks, turning effortless actions into awkward struggles. The foundational explanation comes from Robert Zayonk's drive theory. He proposed that the mere presence of an audience naturally increases our physiological arousal. This elevated arousal acts as a magnifying glass for our most dominant responses. It boosts what we know best and do automatically. For non-dominant responses, those new, complex, or less ingrained actions, this heightened arousal actually disrupts their execution, leading to the performance impairment we call social inhibition. This is the core psychological backstory behind why observers can unexpectedly undermine our capabilities. Why does observation so often undermine our abilities? It boils down to three core psychological mechanisms. Firstly, we experience increased physiological arousal. When under scrutiny, our body instinctively triggers a subtle fight-or-flight response. This surge of adrenaline and heightened awareness, while beneficial in some situations, can disrupt the precise motor skills and complex cognitive functions needed for intricate tasks, manifesting as trembling hands or faltering speech. Secondly, evaluation apprehension kicks in powerfully. We become acutely aware that we are being judged, and the fear of negative assessment can be profoundly paralyzing. This shifts our mental focus from the task itself to how we are perceived by others, fostering intense self-consciousness and performance anxiety. This diversion of mental energy is a significant drain on our cognitive resources. Lastly, distraction and cognitive overload play their part. The very presence of an audience, even a passive one, acts as a potent distractor. Our valuable cognitive resources, which should be entirely dedicated to the task, are instead divided between performing and subconsciously processing the observers. This split attention diminishes our working memory capacity and can lead to critical errors, ultimately sabotaging our performance. What makes social inhibition stronger or weaker? It's a mix of the situation, the audience, and our own makeup. Firstly, the task's nature is key. Complex, unfamiliar, or new tasks are far more vulnerable to inhibition. When something requires intense focus and isn't yet automatic, the pressure of observation can easily derail our efforts, turning competence into confusion. Secondly, the audience plays a big role. A large crowd, especially one perceived as expert or highly critical, tends to amplify the effect, increasing our apprehension and the fear of negative judgment. Conversely, a small, supportive, or familiar audience can often mitigate these feelings, making the experience less daunting. Lastly, individual differences matter greatly. People with higher trait anxiety or lower self-esteem are often more susceptible to wilting under the spotlight. However, those with extensive prior experience, a strong sense of self-efficacy, or a naturally calm disposition tend to manage the observer effect with greater resilience, showcasing how personal factors interact with external pressures to shape our performance. When social inhibition takes hold, its impact extends far beyond internal feelings, manifesting visibly and tangibly across our being. Physically, you might experience the telltale signs like trembling hands, a sudden stutter or stammer in your speech, or a puzzling impairment in coordination, turning once fluid movements into awkward fumbles. Cognitively, the pressure brings about significant challenges. Your working memory might dwindle, making recall difficult, and maintaining focus on the task at hand becomes a Herculean effort. This mental fog often leads to impaired decision making, where even simple choices feel overwhelming under the spotlight. Emotionally, the situation can trigger intense feelings of embarrassment and acute frustration, often accompanied by a compelling desire to simply disappear or escape the perceived judgment of the observer, highlighting the deep discomfort this phenomenon causes. Thankfully, we can equip ourselves with practical strategies to manage and even overcome the observer effect. First, practice and overlearning are crucial. By consistently rehearsing and mastering skills until they become automatic, we turn them into dominant responses, less susceptible to the jitters of being watched. Think muscle memory. Second, cognitive reappraisal helps immensely. Instead of succumbing to fear of judgment, consciously reframe the situation. See it as an exciting challenge or simply a chance to fully engage with your task. Positive self-talk can be a powerful ally here. Third, exposure and desensitization builds resilience. Gradually increase your comfort with being observed by seeking out low-stakes observational settings first, then progressively moving to more challenging ones. This incremental exposure helps normalize the experience. Finally, mindfulness and attention training teaches you to anchor your focus. By honing the ability to stay present and concentrate solely on the task at hand, you minimize mental bandwidth spent on audience perceptions, allowing your true abilities to shine through. These tools empower you to transform pressure into peak performance. Social inhibition is a natural response to observation, often impairing complex task performance. How can we redesign training to better prepare individuals for performance under pressure? Share your thoughts in the comments.